Aloha and welcome to another episode of Hawaii Food and Farmers Series. So we're here today talking to the movers and shakers of Hawaii's local food system. I'm your co-host Matthew Johnson, and today instead of having Justine with us, we have a special co-host, Molly Mamaril.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, great having you here. We were just hanging out last weekend and I was able to convince you to come on. So thanks for joining me.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and to be here with Ashley. So ready to go.
Great. So before we get started, let me do a couple of housekeeping things. So if you want to join the conversation, which we know you do, you can join us through the Twitter at ThinkTechHI. And you can also call in now at the phone number shown below. Nice. Nailed it. So with that, Molly, can you introduce our guest today?
Sure. So today we have Ashley Watts, and she is here representing Local IA, which is a community-supported fishery here in Hawaii. And I've gotten to know Ashley over the last few months, and I'm really grateful that she is part of our cohort with Hawaii Investment Ready, which is how we all know each other. And I know Ashley to be a scientist, a good friend, a surfer, and a really good businesswoman. So thank you for being here today, and we're excited to hear more.
Thank you guys for having me. I'll tell you a little bit about Local IA. It is a community-supported fishery, meaning it's kind of like a CSA model, but with fisheries, so we distribute seafood. So our members prepay each week for a share of seafood that's delivered to their house. At Local IA, we take pride in serving fresh, local, and pono seafood, meaning that we vet for the fishermen that catch your fish. So we can tell you who caught your fish, when they caught it, and where they caught it. So there's complete traceability from boat to plate.
Cool. So we've spoken before about CSAs on the program with community-supported agriculture, and so this is community-supported fishery. But give us a little background on what does that mean? What is that? What is a CSF?
So a CSF is most like a CSA than any other type of business model. So like I say, you do prepay for seafood shares. The seafood is whatever seafood the fishermen provide for us that week. So it's seasonal based on distribution. Also, we go by the pono seafood seasons here in Hawaii. So that's a way that we bring in the traditional knowledge that the Hawaiians had about when to take certain species. And that's part of our sustainability aspect of the company, is that we like to provide the opportunity for the fishermen to become stewards of the resource and provide the resource itself.
So let's say I'm a member of this community. What can I expect? So you're saying similar to the community-supported agriculture, where you get a share of the harvest. That's kind of the, basis of how the program works. So I go in and become a member. What can I expect to receive?
So as a member, you can sign up. We have two different size shares. We have a single size share and a family size share. The single size share is 1.5 pounds of seafood. And so that would be cleaned or whole fish, depending on the species. And we would tell you ahead of time if it is clean so that you can prepare for your dinner. So we provide 1.5 pounds for the single share and 3 pounds for the family share. In that share, you get the fish itself. You also get a recipe. We send out for the newsletter a little bit of information about the fish, a little bit of information about the fishermen, and also some ways that you can prepare the fish.
Great. I was curious, how do you know the fishermen? Are they people you knew prior or people you meet through word of mouth?
Both. I have been in the fishing industry for a while. I started off with the National Marine Fisheries Observer Program here in Hawaii, the longline fisheries. So I know a lot of those fishermen. But at Local IA, we're trying to get away from the overexploited commercial fishing industry. So in turn, I've become friends with a lot of local fishermen, and I have a lot of networking throughout my history with the Observer Program. So between all of the networks and all the people that I've met, I have come in contact with a lot of fishermen. And it seems that here in Hawaii, everybody has a friend who's a fisherman. So it's really easy to find them.
That's very true.
Or they are fishermen themselves.
Right.
So Molly, that's interesting because you also have a background in fish sanctuaries. Can you talk a little bit about your background and what you do?
So here in Hawaii, I work in marine conservation, and it's been a really cool process to kind of go from school in natural resource management and then learning about marine conservation, specifically with marine protected areas.
Okay.
So it's interesting because it ties in really well with local IA and how the fishermen are trying to fish in Pono ways, and the ways kind of reverting back to the traditional values of thinking sustainably and only taking what you need. So some of the benefits of having marine protected areas in places like Hawaii is that they can allow that area to regenerate. And the fish stocks can replenish. The smaller fish can actually grow into adults without the threat of being overfished. They're created, MPAs or marine protected areas are created in the first place because the human impact has been so great.
Right.
Whether it's from pollution or overfishing or recreational activities. So it's helpful to have them because if the spillover effect takes place, then the fish and the eggs and the larvae go beyond the boundaries of that protected area, and the fishermen can benefit from that. So it's, in many ways, they can be very helpful. And in an ideal world, there wouldn't need to be marine protected areas because there would naturally be that observation and understanding of the marine environment. Because for many coastal communities, the ocean is their backyard. It's their refrigerator. And fishermen that work with companies like Logo IA could be that shift, that mindset shift. And I think that's why it's cool to have you here, because you're trying to integrate that into the local fish economy.
Right, and one thing to add about what Molly's talking about marine protected areas, historically the Hawaiians had very fundamental protected areas called fish ponds, or that's where they house the juvenile fish, and in that area the fish are protected from the predators, and so that's a structural protected area. Like you're talking about the ones in the open ocean, right, with the regulations. Well, the Hawaiians have this kind of fundamental protected area where it's actually walls that protect the fish, and at Local IA we're looking into and now currently doing research into how we can help those fish ponds and how we can start replenishing the populations. Instead of just taking the resource, we're going to give not only the community but the fishermen as well an opportunity to replenish and to give back to the resource. Because we find that that's the majority of the problems that people have with the fishermen, is that they all the time take, especially with the commercial fishermen that overexploit and deplete the resources, as you say, in all areas. And so we're giving them a way to give back. It's exciting.
Well, so kind of what you're saying is, if as a member of the CSF local IA, you get your share, you said like a pound and a half of fish with each share, and then you're actually going to be part of contributing to putting fish back into the ocean through the fish ponds, like what they have out in Haia?
Right, so it's not in process yet. We're still doing research on the best ways to replenish the oceans and how to best support the fish ponds. It's actually just something that I came across at HIR this past weekend with feedback from the different companies and the different other enterprises in our impact acceleration program, HIR. And from their input, I realized that the impact that we're having from just taking the fish, we need to put back. And that would be a very easy way for us to put back. And the idea kind of came from certain people knowing about the community managed areas like Molokai and Momomi and all of those, where the community already manages those areas and they already put back the fish. And so it's kind of like modeling those areas. And we want to showcase those areas and show that it actually can be done. And so we were all chatting about HIR and about how we can replenish, and it's kind of like seeding a forest, right? So if you have the seedlings and you go and seed a forest, the seeding of the fish is kind of the same way. So we're hoping to get that installed. So right now at Local IA, you can be very feel good about what you eat, because you are giving back to the sustainability of the ecosystem. Maybe not through replenishment yet, but through knowing that the fisherman that caught your fish caught it in a more sustainable way than most other commercially caught fish here. Because 60% of the fish that are sold commercially in our state are imported.
Oh, wow.
And so most of the fish that we eat that are in Times and Foodland in the supermarket, we don't know where they came from. It says wild caught, or maybe it says the country, but you don't know exactly where it came from.
what
You don't
part
know
of the
what
country.
chemicals that have been in the water. You don't know how it was processed, how it was packaged, if it was kept to temperature. And so at Local IA, we vet for all of those things. And we can show you in our database, because we have an online platform called This Fish. And so you go to thisfish.info, and you can see not only all the fish that Local IA has distributed, but in addition to our CSF, we distribute to a few select restaurants around town
Okay.
and Kakua Co-op Market. So you can see on thisfish.info all of the fish that they've distributed as well. And so you can see the history and the story of the seafood of our community. And that's what we mean by community-supported fishery, is that if it's out there and it's black and white and it's traceable, and so it gives everybody opportunity to live in a Pono way.
Very cool. What other restaurants do you distribute to, or businesses?
Right now we have Ed Kinney's restaurants. He's a very big supporter of Local IA.
great.
So we have Town, Kaimuki Super Red, Mud Hen Water, and his new restaurant Mahina and Sons down in Waikiki. Also we have Gooch and the Peely Group, so Mission Hall Cafe and Lunchbox. And we have Chef Leanne Wong. She's a supporter of Local IA, and she had her restaurant, Haleahuna. Unfortunately, that noodle house closed, but she still has Cocoa Head Cafe that we distribute for. And then there's a few restaurants downtown, Chinatown, Grandin, Pig and the Lady. And I've been speaking with, in cahoots with Monkey Pod, a Merriman restaurant in Ko'olina, and that's quite a large account. So with the expansion, and I'm looking to expand our suppliers to try to come up with a more stable market, more consistent product for these restaurants. That's one thing that kind of limits our ability to distribute to restaurants, is the consistency of species, right? Because it's all wild, it all depends on who catches what. And if you have something on your menu, you kind of want to have the same thing, right? So with expanding the supply, I'm expanding the ability to target these restaurants, such as Monkey Pod. And so I would really like to have Local IA seafood in Monkey Pod because of all the tourists that come through. And so that's one of the main priorities of Local IA, is increasing awareness. And so we're trying to change the consumption of seafood to a mindful consumption, and to actually know what you're doing with the resource, because the seafood, the marine resources are really depleted, and so we really have to start, as the agricultural resources, are in dire need of help.
Absolutely. So unfortunately, we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to hear more about the fishermen that you're working with, and also the education that's part of your guys' mission as well. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Aloha, I'm Kaui Lucas, host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here on Think Tech Hawaii every Friday at 3 p.m. We address issues of importance for those of us who live here on the most isolated landmass on the planet. Please come join me Fridays at 3 p.m. Mahalo.
I'm Jay Fidel, and I'm the host of Research in Manoa, Mondays from 12 to 1 on thinktechhawaii.com. Take a look at us and learn about geophysics, learn about planetology, learn about the ocean and earth sciences at UH Manoa. You'll really enjoy it. So come around, we'll see you then.
Aloha, I'm Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and I'm fortunate to be able to host Sustainable Hawaii at thinktechhawaii.com. I hope you'll join in with us every Tuesday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. to see the interesting people we have to share with you their information. Aloha.
And we're back to Hawaii Food and Farmer Series. I'm your co-host, Matt Johnson, today with a special co-host, Molly Mammarell.
Thank you.
And we are talking to Ashley Watts with Local IA about fish. And I always thought it was okay just to go to Safeway, Foodland, Whole Foods, and you have the plastic wrap ahi and mahi, and you're kind of telling me that we may not necessarily know where that fish is coming from. I mean, I'm assuming it's all coming from local waters, and it sounds like that may not be the case.
That's definitely not the case. I would say, well, 60% of the time here in the state of Hawaii, commercially sold seafood does not come from here. Most of the time, it doesn't even come from where it says it comes from. That's kind of not something that I want to touch on. It's a
That sounds like
product
a whole nother show.
of governmental labeling. We
Okay.
have fights with that right now with GMO products. But that's kind of hearsay. But what does matter and what makes a difference in all seafood is the method it was caught. So whether it's pelagic, whether it's coastal, whether it's
So
large.
pelagic meaning like deeper sea
Right, so-
fish, like the larger fish.
Right, pelagic means open ocean.
Okay.
Okay, so whether it's open ocean or coastal, the way it was caught is impacts the environment.
Okay.
And so the impact on the environment is kind of what we're getting at, and the quantity of fish that they're going for. So shrimp is one of the one species of seafood that's harvested in a very detrimental manner to the ecosystem. The majority of the shrimp that we eat worldwide is caught by trawling systems. And so these big trawlers have doors and they have nets and they drag the bottom of the
Oh,
ocean.
wow. Yeah.
And so it scoops up all. And so you guys seen the movie Forrest Gump, right?
Oh, yeah.
Probably a long time ago, right? So they dump it all on the deck and they see all these organisms like crabs, all of these things. And the big fishermen for shrimp catch so much of that bycatch that they don't have time to throw it back before
Okay.
it dies, or maybe it dies in the net because there's so much volume of shrimp in the net.
So they may have like turtles or a dolphin or a mermaid stuck in the net, and they just
Right.
kind of don't have,
Not
they're unable to
snorkeling.
kind of throw it out.
Yes,
Okay.
and there have been improved regulations, so there are mermaid and turtle exclusion devices
That's
now
good.
that a fisherman can adopt. But those are regulated fisheries. So then we get into the whole regulation side of things. So we are regulated in the United States. The United States fisheries are probably the most regulated and most sustainable in the world, right? But say you go to China and they have their regulations. So they may have regulations that are strict as ours. Their enforcement may not be as good, meaning that they don't have to abide by those rules on paper. Or maybe they say they're abiding by rules and then they don't.
Right.
So the whole regulation side of things kind of makes it tough to know exactly where your seafood is coming from, even if it has a label on their listing, where it was caught, when it was caught, all of these things. And so you have to trust the person that is that middleman. And so that's what local IA is trying to do, is we not only provide you with all that information, but we give you the option to contact the fisherman.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just trusting local IA saying, hey, this guy caught this taco sustainable way Friday. So you can call this taco fisherman and ask him how he.
Like, hey, did
So-
you catch this sustainably?
Right, so we
Okay.
provide that direct contact. The bycatch problems we have here locally, so
Yeah.
I mentioned shrimp, right? So shrimp are kind of not Hawaii species. We have the amaebi, which are the deep sea shrimp. And those are caught in a very sustainable way. They use traps, right?
Okay.
The only problem we have with those being distributed is they're going a lot for export, right? So 60% of the seafood commercially distributed in Hawaii is imported.
Right.
But I don't know the exact percentage, and I don't want to throw one out there because I don't want it to be wrong. But there's a very large percentage, I would say the majority of our seafood that's caught in our waters is exported. And so the amaebi are being exported to China, where people pay a lot more money for the deep sea
Oh,
shrimp.
wow.
And the problem with the fishermen here is they're not being respectful of the spawning seasons. And so you can go and get these shrimp and they will be full of female eggs. And so if you don't respect the spawning seasons of fish and give them time to distribute their eggs into the wild, then those eggs are automatically gone, right? There's no chance for them to become juveniles.
Yeah.
And so that's the way that you help in that respect. And the fishermen here with the longline guys in the bycatch, so the bycatch for the tuna industry is very limited here as well with the longline, because they have the long line and they have the certain hooks. And the areas they fish and the methods they fish kind of limits the bycatch.
Okay.
So those are the two methods that you kind of want to look for if you are purchasing seafood from the supermarket, is the method that it was caught and the bycatch that was associated with it.
And so you're saying the more sustainable methods of catch is the long line and then also like smaller traps?
Well, not necessarily long line, but hook and line. So
Hook and
say
line.
like it's not a big net, like you're not going
Oh,
in
okay, like
and
the big
hooeying
trawler
up
like
all
you're
of the
describing.
the fish or the individuals. You're going one at a time,
Okay.
or maybe multiple hook and line.
Yeah.
So then you go from, there's a grade of sustainability, right? So just because it's hook and line doesn't mean it's highly sustainable, because like the one line with one hook is the most sustainable, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the jig, which is the one line with many hooks.
Mm.
And then you have the long line, which is one line with multiple lines with multiple hooks. So the more hooks you have, the more lines you have, the less sustainable it is.
Okay.
But line fishing and hook fishing is more sustainable than net fishing, trawl fishing, and trap is more sustainable than trawl.
Dynamite fishing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are working, local IA being the education entity that we desire to be, we are working at getting all this information put up on our website so that you can go and educate yourself on the fishing methods and know.
Cool.
So you can know when to buy fish from certain of our fishermen, but you can also know how to have, how to make a decision in the supermarket.
Fish. Okay.
Great. I was wondering, so for the fishermen that you do work with, are they typically like from families, or are they commercial fishermen already? How are you choosing them, even if you already know them? But yeah, and how are those methods determined? Like how to choose them?
So the fishermen, they're pretty adamant about what they do, right? So all fishermen already have a method of fishing. I kind of contact them by knowing their method of fishing. So if I know this guy is fishing in a Pono manner, then I would contact him. I meet a lot of fishermen hearsay. And if I have a fisherman and I see him fishing in a Pono way, but I might hear from somebody else that he's not, I also have that into account as well. So I kind of keep track with them. I have gotten a lot of charter guys. So the charter fishermen, they may not have a market to sell their fish, although I've heard on the back end that some of the charter fishermen don't offer their fish to their paying customers, and then they try to sell them, so they're making double money.
Oh, wow.
So the fishing industry is kind of interesting, right? So there's a lot of relationships, a lot of hearsay. I have to be very open and kind of listen and observant to all of these relationships. A lot of the fishermen that we have are family guys. A couple of the throw net guys I have are just family, like weekend warriors, we call them. So they have a 9-to-5 job, but then they go fishing on the weekend. Some of the guys I have are commercial fishermen, like day boat guys, so the charter guys. And then we're looking to add some small boat fishermen. So those are not quite long line, but it's called a short line, so it's less than a mile. But the only problem we're having with trying to get these fishermen is that the short line isn't really a regulated fishery. So the long line, as it may be, they have bycatch sometimes, and they get a lot of beef for catching marine mammals and sea turtles and whatnot. Even though they have all those problems, they are a well-regulated fishery and it's well documented. The short line is not. So we're trying to go through and vet and trying to figure out everything about the regulations and all of that.
Cool.
But that's what you have us for, local IA, is to find out all of this information so that you know the seafood you're eating.
And deliver it in a way that's really easy to understand.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
So talk a little bit about your customers, because part of me in the back of my mind is thinking like maybe you guys are a little bit ahead of your time in that, do people even really care as much as we think they should? Because obviously right now with like local agriculture, there's a huge movement right now. You've got the groups who are the anti-GMOs, anti-pesticides. I mean, it's everywhere. There's a lot of that conversation, but you don't really hear people saying, hey, no trawlers, people kind of know, and you see those YouTube videos and the movies out there, but I don't feel like it's quite as prevalent as how you see with local ag. So where are you finding these customers? Who are these people?
It's a very interesting question, Matt. Thank you.
That's what I'm here for.
Who are these people?
Yeah, who are these people? Well, so you're talking about the fishermen, and obviously you're trying to match the two. You need to have fishermen who care, and you need to have customers who care. So, are you guys finding that there's a a lot of interest in what you guys have to offer?
Actually, yes, we are. There's a lot of support out there, not only by the community, but by the restaurateurs and the visitors themselves. So as you guys know, tourism is going towards a green movement, right? Everybody wants to have a green vacation. So we're kind of looking to tap into that market with the restaurants. So you go on a green vacation, you're going out to dinner, you might want to ask where your seafood comes from, and that's another thing that we encourage people to do is ask when you're out where the seafood comes from. But to get back to your question about who these customers are, I think our customers are the same customers that care about the GMO labeling, that care about having their agriculture clean, their whole food in general to be clean. I think those are the people that we market to and that are our customers. The problem that you're speaking of, I think, that I see, is that people only really pay attention to what they see. If you cannot see it, then kind of think it's not there. And so that's a lot of the problems that we have with the ocean. Same with pollution. So a minute ago you said you go to the grocery store and you see a fish wrapped in plastic. I wanted to warn you about the plastic itself, but that's a whole
What?
different topic you should have me on the show for.
Now I'm freaked out.
Marine debris. So there's actually a lot of plastic and nastiness in our ocean that we cannot see. And that's another part of my kuleana is to educate the community about the marine debris and the different chemicals that are getting into our water and getting into our food through our trash. And so that's kind of where I come to the conclusion that what you cannot see, you really don't believe. So maybe these people who are very concerned with the ag movement, and maybe we are kind of ahead of ourselves, because I really believe that once they notice, hey, well, I know where my veggies come from, I know where my beef comes from, it comes from Paniolo, I know where my pig comes from Shinsato, but where did that shrimp come from? Where did that tuna come from? And so like it's kind of a process of thinking, right? So we're hoping that we are ahead of the movement, but we're hoping, and they are getting that way, we're getting more and more buy-in, more and more people contacting us, asking us about where they can get local seafood. And like the industry, the tourism industry that I was referring to earlier, I've had tourists come into one of our drop-off sites is in Kailua, the coffee shop Morning Brew. So that's a very frequent spot for tourists. So we have a sign there with an advertisement and a cooler. And I've had tourists come in and see our sign and call me directly for fresh local seafood. And that's one of the things that we want to expand, is distributing it to the tourists themselves. Because I think that market with the green tourism movement and the eating clean, I think those are our main customers that we want to target.
Do you feel like tourists are pretty well educated on the seafood industry? Or because they come here and they probably think that seafood in Hawaii is from Hawaii. So is there
That's a
that
good
natural
point.
assumption there?
I think
and for local people?
Yeah, I think that is the natural assumption, and that's kind of something that we're trying to educate and bring light of as local IA. I think it may not be that the tourists are more educated about the topic, and maybe that they're more open to try changes in the original, motif or whatever, like they're willing to take that chance because they're already on vacation, they're already doing this whole
Out of their
green
routine and
vacation,
everything.
right? So they
Okay.
have a
Yeah.
more, and they also have more money, right? So when you go on vacation, you have more money you can spend on a farm to table restaurant. I mean, because we both know, well, all three of us know that eating clean
Ashley
isn't.
and I
Whoa. Don't exclude me here, guys. But unfortunately, while you guys are trying to kick me out, we have to go to another quick break. But when we come back, I want to talk about kind of like the future of local IA, but also just the future of our fisheries as a whole. So yeah, we're going to take a real quick break and we'll be back.
You're watching ThinkTech Hawaii, exploring the world we live in, recognizing the changes around us, and looking into the future of our lives together in these islands. Great content for Hawaii from ThinkTech.
Hello, I'm Stephen Katz, and I'm the host of Shrink Wrap, which comes to you live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. on thinktechhawaii.com, and then it's repeated again whenever you want if you go to the website. On our show, we will be talking to all different kinds of therapists, psychologists, psychoanalysts, psychiatrists, people who talk about the mind, the brain, and about different ways to find happiness I myself am a marriage and family therapist in practice here in Hawaii, and I hope you will join us because I've got a lot to learn, you've got a lot to learn, and it's a great ride. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
And we're back, Hawaii Food and Farmer Series. And I think I forgot to mention that you can find us every Thursday afternoon, 4 o'clock on the Think Tech Hawaii channel. I'm always forgetting that kind of stuff. So I'm your co-host, Matt Johnson, here today with a special co-host, Molly Memmerl. And we're talking to Ashley Watts from local IA, all things fish, sustainable fisheries. Starting to freak me out about the fish I'm getting. So I don't know what I'm going to do for dinner tonight. But one thing that I don't want us to miss out on is how all three of us know each other. And we're kind of talking about, a lot of different social impact type businesses, and that's a lot of the kind of guests that we have here. And we're all part of a group called Hawaii Investment Ready. Mm-hmm. Molly, can you give us a little background on that, and we'll kind of tie that into what Local IA is doing and also what we're trying to do for the fisheries?
Sure. So as the two of you know, we work together in Hawaii Investment Ready, and it is an organization that supports local businesses and is trying to build up the Hawaii business economy, nonprofits, businesses, and it takes a cohort every couple years and helps those enterprises become more investable. Okay. And there's a series of modules that we've all participated in, and going through things such as like human resources and going through your finances, how do you market yourself, and metrics, how do you evaluate your progress and your impact. So it's a partnership between Social Impact International and Kamehameha Schools, and it really does help those local enterprises become larger players in the Hawaii economy because they are having good social, environmental, economic impact on the wider community in various ways. There's the taro farmers, there's the Hawaiian charter schools, and there's food hubs, there's local IA. So you guys can fill in the gaps. I feel like I'm kind of spiraling a little bit.
No, that was a great introduction. And that's what's neat about, so we're talking about, for the most part, the guests that we have on the show are small businesses, small farms, and so that's neat to see that there is this ecosystem, like you said, to support these small businesses that are not only trying to pay the bills and also pay themselves, but also make an impact. And so local IA, same as with Oahu Fresh, is a for-profit business, but kind of has this other aspect of what you're trying to do as part of your mission. So I guess talk a little bit about how is that kind of programming helping you move your mission forward?
Hawaii Investment Ready has made a scientist a businesswoman.
Wow,
Changing before our eyes.
That is a quote for the website. I like that.
And I think a lot of the cohort members would feel that way. I know one in particular that stands out is one of the taro farmers that Molly was referring to, Dean Wilhelm. And he is a very natural kind of guy, on the ground, hands dirty. And in HIR, we're talking about metrics and spreadsheets and Excel and inputting data. And I think, and he was hesitant at first, like very hard, adamant about only being in the soil and only doing his mission. But this past weekend at the last module, he actually came around and he was saying that data is important. And I think HIR is a very good venue to not only build you as a business person, but also kind of build you as a person in general and kind of make you look at things that you may fall short in or that you may need to work on in your just normal life. I mean, organization and kind of all of that types of impacts that you're going to have, and just how you want to go about your day and what makes you get up in the morning and all of these things. I think it makes you evaluate yourself and the impact that you're having with your business. And I think a lot of us were so hard invested in the impact and invested in the business that sometimes we forget one or the other, and HIR kind of helps bring you back up and balance all of those things out.
It's been really cool to see how in the past year, since we've all gotten to know each other, how much everybody has grown and how the cohort has been able to help one another's enterprises. And to see those partnerships already taking place, whether it's Matt selling someone else's or distributing food, or
Mhm.
you know, those potential partnerships
Yeah.
are forming. And
being on a Think Tech show together?
I know, this would have never happened a year ago.
Never.
So, yeah. What about you? How have you seen yourself in your own enterprise?
Well, definitely kind of, reaching out to different organizations and building these relationships. And we all know that we're small organizations that need to work together. And I think that's always been the biggest thing that I've seen. And that's easier said than done. It takes a lot of time and a lot of trust and, many different conversations to figure that out. And I think that's the biggest part of it. But what I want to do is kind of tie this back into the larger, I guess, conversation of fisheries, because as we all know, we see the reports that our global fishing populations are declining significantly.
90% of the wild caught species are overexploited.
90%. So really, in theory, what we're talking about is we could get to a point where there's no longer wild caught fish available to eat. And obviously that would be a huge impact for a country like the United States, but you take a smaller third world island nation, countries such as like the Philippines or Indonesia. I mean, if that were to happen, I can only imagine how devastating that would be. So yeah, just kind of talking about that. So, I mean, are you seeing, are there other programs similar to Local IA that are doing something similar? And are there other, I guess, what we call sustainable fishery programs out there, whether it's aquaculture, or what are some other examples?
I'm glad you bring that up, Matt.
Good.
I was actually attending a webinar yesterday morning, and it was with international and nationwide CSFs. So believe it or not, there's multiple CSFs. Most of them, well, all of them are on the mainland in the United States. There's actually about 30 CSFs, I think, on the mainland now.
Okay.
So they're popping up pretty quick. A lot of them are started from grants, and a lot of them kind of perpetuate on grants. That's one thing at Local IA we're having a hard time getting the cost of goods to kind of balance out our revenue and the volume that we're dealing with. Seafood, as you know, is a highly variable resource market-wise, so the price fluctuates with season, with volume, with all kind of things. So seafood is a very hard thing to run a business on, especially when you're trying to do it in a sustainable way and you're not really out to make the big bucks. Like that's not our goal at Local IA. So it makes it tougher for us.
But you want to make some bucks. I mean, you gotta cover the
Right,
bills, like you said.
Yes, and we want to have the impact, and the only way we're going to have the impact and to be able to replenish the fisheries and give money to the fish ponds and do all these things is if we actually get revenue. So with that said, we are we're trying to expand, and the thing about the global fishing market is I think with increased awareness is the only way you're going to have an impact. So at Local IA, as a small niche market company enterprise, we're never going to outcompete Fresh Island Fish or Diamond Head Seafood. We're not trying to be competitors of these distributors. Our mission is to increase awareness on seafood consumption by changing behavior. And so we're just trying to have the customer be mindful of the behavior. So I think as long as we get the voice out there, that I think we can make that happen. And so a lot of the CSFs on the mainland are doing that, but a lot of them are kind of only surviving on grants and whatnot. So we're having an interesting time as a first pilot enterprise here as trying to make it work, and we're trying to make it work without grants. But there are quite a few successful CSFs on the mainland. One in particular, the guy was out here just speaking with us at HIR this past weekend, which is Real Good Fish.
Oh yeah, Alan.
Yeah.
And he has a CSF that operates in California, and even though he has a high volume of customers, he has over, I think, 700 customers.
Yeah.
He's still not making revenue, so it's still having that problem. So I think the CSF model should be used to do education and not as a money-making business. And I think if you know that, then you can make it a viable business, and that we can perpetuate the education of sustainable seafood consumption.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I think you have a unique opportunity here in Hawaii because the traditional values that are here with the Hawaiian culture, those are already instilled in many people, so there is that support for the sustainably minded fishermen already. So if like taking advantage of those partnerships is really key, and you already know this, but it is a unique opportunity in Hawaii because that's not everywhere else in the U.S. or other countries. So.
And the native Hawaiians, going back to the replenishment and the seeding of the fish, there's a lot of controversy on the mainland about these processes because if you bring up the small seedlings in a lab or in captivity and then you release them to the wild, they may carry disease or a certain bacteria or something that will affect the population in the wild. The lucky part about that here in Hawaii is we have the fish ponds that I was referring to earlier. So that is a way to seed the fish with them already being part of the wild. And so you're not taking them out of a lab, so you don't have that great of a chance to harm the wild population with these seedlings. And two, the Hawaiian population, the native knowledge taught us to replenish and to reseed through the fish pond. And so we're already open to replenishing the populations, and they're having difficulty with that in California. There's a lot of resistance to that type of behavior over there. So we're lucky to have that knowledge base, and we're tapping into that with local IA. And we want to kind of turn it around and increase the knowledge of traditional fishing to kind of compensate for the globalization of food systems.
How about some other like like aquaculture, and now there's aquaponics is becoming popular, and you mentioned too like the traditional Hawaiian fish ponds. I mean, obviously there's groups looking at different ways of raising fish. Is that a good thing?
Yeah, I say yes now, and it's funny because if you would have asked me that 10 years ago, I would have had a hard no. They've had a lot of innovation with aquaculture. A lot of research has been done on the dangers and the problems that's associated with aquaculture. Two of those, most importantly, being the runoff and the nutrient input into the natural world. So if you have that system that's farming fish, right, and you have their excretions into the ecosystem, it has a lot of nutrients in it. Environment for algae to grow, which kind of off balances the whole ecosystem. There's been a lot of research into minimizing and mitigating those inputs into the natural ecosystem. A lot of aquaculture is being done in the open ocean now, so that the nutrients kind of get washed back into the ecosystem as a whole. Yeah, the Kampachi, and they're actually doing tuna farms out there as well, kind of open water. There's a few companies. My only concern with that would be marine debris, making sure that you have all of the parts together properly so that they don't contribute to the marine debris problem. But other than that, I think that it is a very beneficial addition to the seafood consumption.
Great. The one thing I don't like about this show is we never have enough time. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Ashley, for coming on and telling us about local IA. And Molly, thank you so much for being a co-host.
Thanks for inviting me.
I hope you'll come back again.
My butterflies are gone.
I love there's like that pause, like, because if you say it on camera, I'm going to hold you to it. No. But yeah, thank you once again for joining us, Hawaii Food and Farmer Series. And once again, we're here every Thursday at 4 o'clock. We'll see you next week. Aloha.